Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to episode 49 of BDA Chat. I'm your host, Lee Williams, and joining me this week, it's my favourite time of the week, as ever, we've got Mr. David Knowles.
Hello.
And I've mentioned his surname, which means I'm going to have to mention John's surname, but I won't because it's really long and double-barreled, so I'm going to let John do that. John.
It's John Petman Tideswell.
There you go. Lovely. John, it's John's first time on the podcast, and John joins BDA as a new sales. Is it new sales?
It's business development manager.
That's the one. Yep. Business development manager. And so basically, what we thought we'd do is because John's been doing a lot of presentations to new clients and and doing all that sort of jazz. So we thought, well, why not this week talk about tips and tricks for sales presentations or presentations in general, really. So this week we're going to be talking about presentations.
Indeed
Episode
we are.
49.
Indeed we are.
So, welcome to all those that have tuned in. It's nice to see you. It's freezing in here, absolutely Baltic. The temperature has dropped. So, who's gonna steam first into the page one of their presentation?
Well, shall I start?
Go for it.
I think let's start by what does a bad presentation look like?
Numbers.
We've all sat in them.
Confused.
We've all listened to them. Go on, let's just talk about those for.
Bad presentations are lengthy. Bad presentations are devoid of purpose. Mm-hmm. I think it comes down to numerous things, doesn't it? Presentations, you've got the person presenting, you've got the subject matter. There is an argument that anything could be made interesting, but it's also easy and possible to make anything boring and dull and lifeless. I would say my experience of bad presentations have been the ones where the subject matter or the person speaking hasn't grasped the audience that they're presenting to.
I think also there is this. Yes, I think that's really true. But there's also this danger, certainly with presentations, that those that I've sat through are the ones that I've found quite less inspiring, where they're basically reading off the slides. Well, the slides have got so many words on them that you can't take any of it in. They end up just looking away from you at the screen to read it to you, and you end up just turning off and switching off and not listening to them at all.
Yes,
I just find that really difficult. I've also I think the personality that you can bring into a presentation is vital. Now, how do you start it? What is it that you're going to come in with that's actually going to engage the audience from the get-go? Often, talking of good ones, you'll get somebody who come in with a joke or an anecdote or a little life story that they have that gets someone interested. Yeah, an icebreaker.
Yeah, you
tell a joke, do something more.
You buy into the person presenting, don't you? When it's that the emotional connection, isn't it, with the person who's speaking? Particularly if you've never met them before, you might know their company, you might know their subject matter, but you've never seen that individual presenting. Yeah. Somehow, like you say, that rapport or breaking the ice through something human, something that you can empathise with, is important, I think.
Yeah. No, because I think I remember back to a presentation some years ago. It was a long time ago, and it was somebody that really should have known better. He was an MD of quite a large company, and he
say no names.
Well, quite honestly, I can't remember who it was because it was so uninspiring. That probably says something, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And he really should have known better. And you're sitting there, you're waiting for this person to come on, and then when they do, you're out the room. Whether that's physically or just mentally, you are out the room because you don't want to take it in, because he ended up just reading the whole thing.
If it's boring, if it's not fun, if it doesn't engage you,
I think also
it's too easy to get your phone out and go.
I think also there's been presentations I've gone to where it's been not about presenting a company, it's about presenting a concept or a thought or ideas or on a totally different subject, and somebody has presented and basically tried to sell themselves or sell their company the whole way through.
There was you felt you were brought to the presentation on false grounds?
Yes.
Yes. Well, I suppose, again, talking about what are the purpose of presentations, why do we do them? I think most presentations that people see, there's always an underlying purpose, isn't there? I suppose in the field that I work in, most have always been someone trying to sell something. But it's interesting that you say the disappointment that because you weren't expecting to be sold to, that's the disappointment. That there was a promise and there was an under-delivery.
Yeah, it was a sales pitch.
Yeah.
And I wasn't there for a sales pitch. I was there to get information about a completely unrelated topic. That might have been how best to do email marketing, for argument's sake, and then they just tried to
You definitely went in the right room.
Well, I was there for email marketing tips, and I got sold email marketing software.
Okay.
Or something.
Tip
like
1,
anyway.
buy our software. Tip 2, buy our software. Tip number 3, you know what's coming.
And it was exactly that. Exactly that. I think also there is this danger of information overload on a slide, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I've got a bar chart with last year's data, and you are going, even if you can't actually see it from back in row F, we're going to put it up. You're going to squint, and you're going to realise that your eyesight's not as good as you thought it was.
Yep.
And then we're going to ask questions at the end of, like, what are these numbers and how much did we make in, whatever year they've put up, and you just sit there and go, what?
Yeah.
And I think simplicity is the key to presentations. Remembering your audience, keep it fun, keep it engaging. Less is more, definitely. Yeah. But I think sometimes the less is more approach opens up. I think I can see why people do it, because you've got people that aren't used to doing presentations. You've got people that aren't sure about. They've been asked to do it, and then it's not in their comfort zone. Let's be fair. I think to sometimes to give a good presentation, you have to be a little bit of a character or a bit of an extrovert to get out there and do it. I think people that are a little bit shy and they don't like that sort of like that that central point of attention from a lot of people. The limelight. Then they're going to rely back to the stats. Yeah. And the facts and the figures and when you put all that on screen, it's there really to. I think that at that point, the viewer or the person that's giving the presentation is trying to basically take the focus off of them and look at the screen. Look at all the data that's here. Hey, let me bamboozle you with all this stuff. Another way of looking at it is, I don't really know what I want to talk about, so let's just talk about some numbers and some stats. And I think I think sometimes, if you haven't got a solid ground for your presentation, or if you're lacking in a bit of, and anybody can do a presentation, anyone can do it. But the key is, in terms of getting that confidence, is to rehearse it, is to make sure that you've done it at least 5 times, a couple of times on your own, in a room, talking to yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. I do it all the time. And then, in front of someone else, and then you start to build that confidence so that there's nothing worse doing a presentation when you're looking at a sheet, or you're looking at sometimes you have to because it's rushed. I've done it. But, I think if you're going to get people interested in what you want to talk about, they have to be interested in you. And you have to kind of sell yourself a little bit, and as well as don't hide behind the numbers. But like I said before, I see why they do it.
Oh yeah, you can understand it. You can understand it, but you need to, as much as possible to try and get away from it. One piece of information on the screen, or an image, or indeed sometimes nothing at all, because we have to remember that people are there generally to listen to you, to talk, to hear what you've got to say, not to read what's on the screen. If they just wanted to read what's on the screen, well, you could just give them a printout and say, here you go, take this away, digest this, and maybe they might digest it better. You never know.
I think a key tip would be if you're trying to give a presentation and you are faced with here's some numbers, this is the information that's been given to me to present. Try and look at it from a different angle. Try and look at it from a story point of view. Maybe something about yourself. Maybe do you know what? Maybe if you're not comfortable with presenting, then be honest with your audience about that and say, guys, I'm not really very used to this. Well, I'm not very good at this. And you'll soon see that the audience will get behind you, because they're sharing your worries and your pain and your fears about standing up there and doing it. And for all of the people that are sitting there watching you, I'll guarantee you at least 70% of them are in the same boat as you. They don't like standing up and giving presentations. So if you get them on side, they're 100% behind you already. So then it's just a case of, right, I'm going to tell a story about make it about yourself. Make it about how would I want to present this information in the way that in things that interest me. Because if you're talking about things that interest you, you're already going to be more interesting than talking about, well, let's be fair, numbers and guidelines, they're not that interesting at times. But if you can make it more personable, then already I find it's a lot more interesting. I mean, I saw a presentation that failed a couple of years back, and it was all about user experience. And what was his name? Anyway, he went around, he took photographs of really bad user experience. And there was this elevator in Germany, and it had so many buttons, like on this elevator, but all of the buttons did pretty much the same or various. It was just an overcomplicated mess. And he told that through a journey of his user experience. So, wherever he went, he was taking photographs of bad user experience, and he could use that to show his journey of what he discovered in trying to make good user experience. And he was showing the bad.
Yeah.
So, I think there's loads of, take photos of things, find things that interest you. That'd be my kind of tip.
I think another thing to look at as well is we're actually surrounded by presentations far more than we probably realise. So if you think about any televised documentary, what are they trying to do? They're trying to deliver information to you, to educate you, to change your perception, to highlight something, to change your behaviour. And they're trying to do it in a way that is informative or exciting or funny or hard-hitting, via the medium of television or radio or the internet. So if you think about cookery programs, what are cookery programs? Ultimately, it's watching someone teaching you how to make something that you maybe didn't know how to before. All the components. A lot of the recipes that you're seeing are the same recipes again and again and again. There are only so many components to a spaghetti bolognese, but you look at the TV personalities, you look at the locations they're shooting, you're looking at the style of the photography, you're looking at the way they communicate, and suddenly you can have the same information projected in so many different ways. For different audiences, for different people, and it's not just cookery programs. You've got daytime TV. What is programs like This Morning? With Holly and Phil, other presenters are available. The whole sort of premise of that program is to talk about issues in a way that captures the audience's attention and gets amplified and gets talked about.
Sure.
So I think again, when we think of presentations, we always kind of think of the traditional office-based, fact-heavy, trying to convey detail. Be it if it's a sales presentation, it will be to get to change or influence the person that you're selling to get them to see your way. Or if it's a quarterly business review, it will be about looking at the performance over a set period of time and trying to dig and understand that in a way that again captures that audience, be it the C-suite or the investors or the people who are actually doing the day-to-day work. But maybe looking at more social type of presentations, the less corporate type of presentations, is a way to stand out. Maybe it is a way to do something different.
Well, they're all about going on what picking up on something that Lee said, and also what you're saying, John. Is whether it's a presentation to people or a documentary or whatever, or in a corporate environment, you're essentially trying to release chemicals in people's brains, aren't you? And that might be to create empathy and trust for what it is you do. It might be to create action. It might be to create humour, and therefore an ability for them to remember the information that you've given to them. Essentially, it's all this is about the stories that you're telling them, this journey that you're taking them on from this is where you are now, this is the problems that we faced, and this is where we want to go as a result of them. How are we going to get there? And that's generally tends to be the format of a presentation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Generally.
Yeah, it is.
It can be.
But I'm sitting here thinking, like, all the presentations that I've been to, and I've been to a few, not loads, and I guess I'm kind of fortunate that most of the presentations that we have internally, because we're a creative agency, we're very creative in the way that we think about things. So I haven't been, to a lot of these corporate ones, maybe, where it is a lot of hard numbers and and very dry, But even so, the ones that I have been to, regardless if they're corporate or creative, sometimes, and the ones that failed, I would struggle to tell you what information I've taken away from them now. But that being said, I can remember the feeling I had, and I can remember my feelings towards the presenter whilst I was there. And I remember that so much more, so that in the future, let's say if there's another one that failed, but I can't remember her name, Sarah Parmentier, I think. Her presentation was great because it was a little history lesson about her, where she come from, but at the same time it had nuggets of information in there that you could use and that you would take with you. But it's 3 years on. But I think my point would be is that you remember more about the person itself, so much more than you actually remember the information that's being presented. And I think from a selling point of view, regardless of what that information you're putting forward, if you're presenting someone that they want to, buy something from you, or you're selling an advert, or you're selling some creative, it's all about the person, really.
Totally.
The numbers you can put up there are just numbers. If you can put something creative up there that makes them laugh, great. They'll remember you more for the laugh, as long as you get a good laugh. The emotion you create from that, in terms of how you present it, your mannerisms, all of that is taken into consideration, which unfortunately makes presenting even more scary than I thought. Because you're kind of it's all on the presenter.
You're putting yourself out there, aren't you?
You are, and you're saying, this is what I stand for. These are even if they're numbers, you got to stand by them. These are the numbers that I'm putting forward. This is the creative that I'm putting forward. This is the mission statement that I'm putting forward. This is the story I'm trying to sell, and it's all about you. And if you can't, unfortunately, present that in a way that's entertaining, that's engaging, and that, like you say, creates those emotions in people, then unfortunately, I hate to say it, you're probably going to fail because you're not going to get it right. If you want to hide behind numbers, if you want to hide behind a lack of idea, you'll be found out, and people will just come away from it. And as much as I hate to say it, we've all done it. A lot of people say, "That was great. That was yeah. I'll pick up the phone. What's the number? Yeah, give us your card. Yeah."
You
because
never hear from them
and you
again.
never hear them again because. And 9 times, I'm not saying that every time that's simply because of the way you presented it. There's other factors out there, but it's all about creating a lasting impression. And sometimes, if you're so used to people giving you presentations, it'd be nice if you let someone through the door and say, "Do you know what? I'm not got a presentation for you. I'm just going to stand up and just talk about what makes the item or the reason why I'm here so very important that I have to get up, travel here, and talk to you about it."
Yeah, because I think there's a difference, isn't there, between when you're the size of the audience you're presenting to, because you can make something very, very personalised if you're speaking to an individual, or you're presenting to a specific team. But if you're presenting to 5,000 people who are very, very broad in terms of their needs and tailoring your information appropriately, that's quite,
mass presentations.
Mass presentations. It's kind of the.
But then, if you were presenting to 5,000 people, there's no hell way that you would go in front of 5,000 people not being good at what you do. You'd be a professional presenter to go in front of 5,000 people, and you would have gone to some sort of presenting school.
Although, well, you say that, but then look at how certain videos go viral.
Yeah, but that's like trying to catch a genie in a.
But if you're looking at you can talk about a physical audience that you're speaking to, and they're sat in the room with you, big room if it's 5,000 people.
Well, yeah.
But then you've also got now, I say now with the internet, like it's a new thing. But now you've got this virtual audience that you can access, and a lot of presenting does happen via webinars that then get recorded, and then broadcast.
Well, you only have to look at TED Talks, don't you? The audiences they actually present that to physically are not massive. No, sometimes they're quite small.
I quite like the way they do those.
Yeah,
they're quite small little audiences. You feel like you feel like the audience could take part if they wanted to. You don't feel like 5,000 people.
Yeah, and often there is participation and all that type of stuff that goes on, isn't there, with some of those? But some of them are very engaging speakers.
Yes.
I think it's just a new way of living. Generally, if you think about it, right, my kids, we'll go back to my kids, we always go back to my kids, but they watch a lot of YouTube, as I'm probably sure your kids do if you've got kids. But you look at the number of people that can present on YouTube. it's amazing. You've got like Allier or whoever, but 9 times out of 10, there's a lot bad out there, don't get me wrong. But there's also like, wow, you know, the way they've put this together, the way they've edited it, the VO that they've put to it, and these are like, okay, the teenagers, some of them, but it just goes to show that that's where it starts. It starts with just getting used to actually sitting in front of a camera or sitting in front of whatever and just presenting.
And not being afraid of failing.
And not, not, you know, you put your first one out there, okay.
I suppose the virtual audience helps with failure in, well, in some ways, yes and no, because obviously we know now with the internet, with, you know, your audience you always hear the people who are complaining, and it's very rare for people to kind of give you a thumbs up. But the first people will be the trolls.
You get the trolls. Oh, this is rubbish.
This is rubbish.
I think you have to have a thick skin. But in all fairness, I think if you're good at presenting and you're going to stand out from the crowd, you have to have a thick skin. Because otherwise you never get there.
I think also, just going on back on that point, you know, failing fast is good. You know, the quicker you can kind of prototype what you're doing and get it out there and see what feedback you'll get. And you're talking about presenting online, you're going to be able to measure very quickly and easily how effective what you're doing is. So if there's a topic that you're talking about which seems to resonate with people, it's going to get more people watching it, viewing it, sharing it. If it doesn't, then it's going to not create as much noise and therefore not so much applause from the audience. And therefore you can start tailoring what you're doing. And you can also watch back, listen back to what it is you've done to continually keep improving yourself, can't you?
That's the hardest thing I find to do.
It's hard, isn't it?
It's hard to watch these back, no offence, but it's hard. Because although we play them in the office now, and I stood there the other day and I watched it. And I thought, hey, do you know what? We do all right.
It's all right, no?
We do all right. So, but yeah.
But it's funny how, again, how many presentations does anyone actually do in their average career or average life? You know, you talk about kind of the barriers to entry, and you were mentioning before, Lee, about practicing and speaking in a room. Everyone knows if you want to get good at something, you just have to do it again and again and again and again and again, and practice and understand your cadence and timing, tone of voice, and all of those things. And the only way you ever get good at anything is by practicing it. Now, people do think
doing it badly for a while.
Yeah.
Do you know that's what you have to anything? You were not born brilliant.
No.
At anything really.
No.
You know, you have to practice and practice and practice. You know, golf has to play thousands and thousands and thousands of bad shots to get good.
Yeah.
Still bad.
And and pushing your boundaries slightly as well, and getting out of your comfort zone and going, oh, actually, maybe I will talk about a subject matter where I'm maybe not a complete expert. But the other thing, of course, is with repetition, is it's like an actor with a script, isn't it? You know, you talk about these, you know, we've all been to those awful presentations where someone's presenting to you and they've got the screen behind, and then they're literally with their finger sort of following along, reading out what's on the screen. You're like, I can read faster than you can tell me that information. So I'm already 3 lines ahead by the time that you're ending up the first sentence. Whereas if someone has practiced it and it feels natural and it's like a script,
it is the hardest. It is the hardest part. Though,
there'll be more comfort with it, I suppose.
I think also if the words are on the screen, there is this tendency to go, there are the words, I'm going to read them. Even though I do know this, I'm going to try and read it anyway.
I've done that.
And so for me, if they're not there, then I haven't got that opportunity to become lazy and read them, and actually then take the emotion out of what I want to say, and actually the personality out of it.
Well, I think I've got a stat here from the marketing guru that is Seth Godin, or Seth Godin, depending on where you are in the world. There should be no more than 6 words on a slide ever.
Yeah.
There is no presentation so complex that this rule needs to be broken.
No.
He's also got some other advice that I might as well read out now.
I love slides with just 1 word on.
Yeah, me too. Or just a picture.
Because just a picture. Because they make you think. They make you go, why does he put this image on here for?
That technique is called the Takahashi method.
Okay.
The Takahashi method, having done some research on this, Takahashi uses only slides in his text, but not just any text, really big text.
Yeah, I like that.
Huge text.
I'm doing that.
Characters of impressive proportion, which rarely number more than 10. Usually fewer. The goal, he says, is to use short words rather than long, complicated words and phrases. Last year, Takahashi gave a presentation at a conference using this method or style that he'd created. People were deeply impressed by his presentation.
Is this the same chap that's on Twitter? I'm sure it is. I'm following some chap. I'm sure.
There's Guy Kawasaki.
Oh no, maybe that's him.
Who also has a method.
See,
there's the Guy Kawasaki method as well.
The most thought about segue that was unthought about in the world.
Yeah, Guy Kawasaki talks about doing everything with tens. So top 10 lists is Guy Kawasaki's method of doing presentations.
Do you know what? I think I've been following these. I did top 10 in mine not so long ago.
Yeah. I think, and Guy Kawasaki puts it that if people know that I'm doing a top 10 and they hate what I'm doing, then they can, in their mind, time down to how long they've got left before I'm going to leave.
That's fair enough.
Which is nice.
Audience, has anyone got anything about audience participation?
Nothing that I found about getting people involved.
It's a tricky one, but it's one that can yield results.
I think the right time. I think
if you engage the audience, you think things are getting a bit dry now. You know, maybe I need to.
Well, or else it can be the icebreaker at the beginning. It's knowing your audience, knowing what you're going to go and talk about, knowing how that is actually going to benefit the story, the message, the information that you're going to pass across to them later on. And how that then can affect the mood in the room. You know, if there's other parts that you want them to get involved in later on in that presentation, get them warmed up early on. Otherwise, they're going to be less willing to put their hand up when you really want them to. You know, so,
Well, that's that point of any presentation is trying to start a continued conversation.
Yeah.
And there's a point where you're going to say, right, I'm done now. I'm off. But you want your audience to say, oh, hang on, but... You know, I want
but what
to
about
talk
this?
And what about that? And this all sounds very interesting. Not really up my street right now, but it sounds good for the future. Let's talk.
Yeah.
You know, because not every note in your presentation is going to hit.
No, it's amazing when you go out to go and meet potential clients, or you go and meet people. How you've got your corporate deck sat on your laptop. You turn up, and the first thing you do is you go, "I'm going to put that away. I know what I need to tell you about my company, and I can refer to those images if I need to. But actually, for me to be able to make this more interesting to you, I need to know about you." That definitely works on a one-on-one or one-on-three to be able to tailor that message, which is going to make it more interesting. And then you can use the anecdotes and metaphors that directly relate to their need or want or desire for information, so that everyone comes away feeling better, rather than a cookie cutter style approach which is all about me and trying to get what I want to tell you across, not necessarily what you came here to learn.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like if you were doing a presentation and you could ask everyone who came through the door, what are you here today for? What is it you want to learn? What do you want to come away from here knowing? Take the mass in a democratic fashion. You tailor it properly.
And a good presenter or workshop coordinator or whatever you want to call them will tend to ask that at the beginning of a workshop. What's your
goal?
What's your goals for today?
Because
they're looking to try and address those by the end of the day, so that you walk away and go, "Oh, I got what I wanted out of it." She or he can tick saying, "Yeah, they got what they wanted out of it," and they feel, you then feel psychologically it was a success.
Yeah, because it felt more personal. Yeah, whether you got the person delivering it or the person receiving it, you come away thinking, "Oh, that felt like it was made for me."
You could argue that presentations are actually going out of fashion a bit.
You reckon?
Yeah, only because there's just more ways, more media revenue, more media streams to take in the information. You could argue that with podcasts being as powerful as they are, that people don't maybe need a presentation to be. You'd rather engage in a conversation, even though you're not part of that conversation. You'd rather digest that information through a conversation, through a natural. So if like we're having a conversation about presentations, but the information is coming out of us organically just for our conversation.
Yeah.
So the person that's listening to it is engaged in that conversation because they're seeing how this information comes out of us organically, rather than us putting it on a load of slides. And
not being talked at.
Yeah. We say, "Oh, here's our slide deck on presentations." You know what I mean? That's and plus, it's more easy for people to listen to a podcast in a car or when they're on a run, or it's easier to get that information into your life.
Yeah.
Rather than tune in at 8 o'clock or come to us and see this presentation. Do you know what I mean? Maybe, maybe presentations are just a little bit old. You open a laptop, people go, "There you go, he's going to get this presentation."
Although it's amazing, we were talking just before we started filming about the good old Apple launches and the Apple presentations and how many people tuned in to those.
Yeah, well, the keynotes are different because the keynotes have, and it's Apple. Apple have always had, look at this new toy, and then when you've got something like that, and then and Apple have had some people, some very charismatic or very diverse people at the top.
Yeah.
And I think it's changed a little bit in recent years, but there's still, I think what you got here's the new, people tune in for that. It's the same with E3. People tune in for E3 for what are they going to announce, what's the secrets, what's going to happen in the coming years. And I think if you've got something like that, then
I think Apple and Samsung and some of those large tech companies, they have that advantage that they have products that people do want. Often, though, I think presenters forget that the audience is there to get something out of it for themselves. That actually, the presenter goes in there and says, "Let me tell you, me," when actually it should be about you. What can I take away from this? What's in it for me? What's the promise you're going to give me at the beginning of your presentation, or in me spending this time listening to you, that's going to make it worth my while?
It's almost having someone at the beginning actually laying that out, isn't it? Someone saying, "Thank you for joining me here today. By the end of this presentation, you will know
absolutely
this,
that
or you will understand this."
Yeah.
And then I'm effectively making a promise to you that you're going to get this, and you will chase me with pitchforks if I don't deliver it, because I'm setting a benchmark for myself to be judged.
Yeah.
And make your presentation, because there are a lot of times where people have said to me, "Oh, Lee," well, in actual fact, no one's ever asked me for my slide deck, right? Because it just wouldn't work without me.
No, it wouldn't.
It wouldn't
You're
work.
right, Lee.
It's like, well, I could send it to you, but it'd just be a load of images on a page and words. What would be the point?
And some Star Wars references.
There's always a general Death Star in there somewhere. But,
yeah.
And I think that's, don't make, if your presentation works without you, then maybe it's not.
Well, you've probably written every single word up that you said.
Yeah, and then you just chucked it on every single page.
There
and
we
it's
go.
just like, you've taken the you out of you.
Yeah.
And what would be the point?
Yeah.
That'd be my tip. Make it work without you. Make it work. Anyway, you get the gist.
You get the gist.
No, I think it's interesting what you're saying about the sort of the change in behaviour and the way people expect to be communicated to. So I know that there are a lot of stats out there now in terms of the way that people buy, particularly in business to business transactions, that a lot of the decision is made even before a phone is picked up. Someone will make their judgment based on the visuals, based on their own research and information.
Oh, I mean, if you're purchasing something.
If you're purchasing something, yeah. So you could have a sale. Let's say let's look at, you're going to buy a TV, for example. So you're going to go to a retailer to go and buy a TV in a shop. You will have already done research on what you need, what you want, the size. You'll know about the spec. You may well have done research in terms of the price of the particular. You might know a specific model. You may well already, before you've even walked into that shop, have 2 or 3 models of TV in mind that you want to look at and buy. You get into that store and there's someone there who wants to take you through about a product that you've already done your research and you've already decided it's not for you. Now, you've not seen the product before, you've not physically seen the product, you've not been shown it in person, but because you've looked at the video of the review online, you've seen the peer-to-peer reviews, you've done your own background research, you've already made a judgment, and also the brand as well, and your thoughts and feelings on that brand. You've already made a decision before that person even gets the opportunity to say, have a look at this.
But I always think, I'd agree with that, but there's a point where you want to be challenged, and 9 times out of 10, given the various shops around that you could go into, that no one, let's be fair, it's clear that not a lot of us are anymore, but you go in there to be challenged and to say, well, this is what I'm thinking about, but you're the expert. You're the chap working here. You know more about, as much as I can go on the internet and look at research, you're the chap that sells these things, so therefore you must know more than I know. So then I put it to you, which one of these is the best? Or what do I? And that's at that point, if they can't then explain to you what is the best, and they just take you down, you feel like you're being led down the road of, well, what's he trying to shift? Then you kind of fall out.
Again, I suppose.
Or you just don't.
Talking about that individual, again, the way that they present that information in a shop, it's them giving you the leaflet or going, oh, hello, sir. Right. Okay. So the spec of this TV they want to show you, it's got this and it's got this. Between them, anecdotally, maybe saying, oh, well, we've had a customer recently who had it in their house. They talked about the crispness of the colour and the quality, and they're like, what's going to get you more engaged?
It would all come down to personality again. That's why I think everything comes down to how you present yourself. Because, if I went and buy anything from anyone, if someone said to me, oh, well, what are you going to be using it for? Oh, because I might be playing a bit of PlayStation, I might be doing this, I might be doing that. Oh, really? Oh, I'll do that. Oh, actually, if you can share a bit of common ground about something, you're more than likely to listen to them and, respect their ideas and the information that they've got to give you. Whereas if you just feel you're being fed a sales piece, and that's what happens 9 times out of 10. You go, but even John, well, this is it's like, yeah, but you just, I can understand. We're getting a bit off topic, but I can understand why retail's doing what it's doing, because unless you put people that really know what they're talking about and get into that stage, it's hard. Yeah. You're just going to walk away because you're just going to be like, well, you're just trying to feed yourself. Anyway, we need to get back onto the presentations.
Well, we probably should wrap it up as well.
Let's wrap it up because we're in 30. Calling that. Hang on, I'll just take my glasses off. We're in 31. So, top tip. Who's going to sum up with their top tips? Of David, what's your killer tip for those people out there right now that think about putting a presentation together?
Understand your audience and give them something. Give them what they want.
Give them what they want.
Fulfill the promise. Make it worth their while.
Put yourself in their shoes. If you think you're going to be going to sort of something, what would you want to get out of it? Or maybe sometimes you can leave little flyers. Not little flyers, little data sheets, little things that they can sign up emails, download some more information, gives them links to follow. So, nice one. John, top tip?
My top tip would be to practice.
I stole my one. Think of another one.
And, excuse me, I did have some tips here. The other one is the ideal presentation.
Page, you just said don't do it in a presentation.
The ideal presentation is 18 minutes long.
18 minutes long. So just make it 18 minutes long.
Make it 18 minutes long. If you get to 16 minutes, dance for 2.
To be fair, I swear I've seen a presentation of someone do that. I swear. Nice.
That's the drink kicking in.
So practice, understand your audience. Mine would be just make it fun. Make it engaging. Do anything that you think you'd like to see. Yeah, you need to know what your audience want, but get some personality in there. Because if you get the personality in there, you'll get them on board. You might offend a few, maybe, but hey, at least you've made an impact. If you're going to present something, you might as well go out there and do it strong. So, or as I like to call it, just NFL it. Anyway,
theatre.
Speaking of which, Dallas Cowboys made it to the playoffs. Oh, and another one.
Tony Romo.
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. If you haven't seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and you are into anything creative, go and see Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Okay.
It's brilliant.
Will do.
On that note, that's us done. Thank you, John. First podcast in.
Thank you. Hey.
You enjoy it?
Yeah, I did.
Of course you did.
Of course I did.
David?
It was great.
I've done several. On that note, we'll go.
It's been magic.
It's been magic. It's been great. Right, I'm off to go stand by the radio. Until next week, we shall see you. Episode 50.
Adios.
Wow, brilliant.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.